listen carefully. What I'm about to say isn't for everyone. It's for those who have always felt different, those who carry something heavy inside them that no one else seems to notice. Life hasn't shaped you this way by accident. You are not like the rest. You are chosen. But that doesn't mean what most people think it does. Being chosen isn't some grand privilege, it's a burden, one that demands everything from you. And there are 7 emotional weights that will either break you or turn you into something unshakable. The first is isolation. You feel it, don't you? That distance between you and everyone else. Even in a crowded room, even with people who claim to love you, there's still that gap. You see things differently. You think differently. And the more you wake up to your own truth, the more disconnected you become from those who are content living on the surface. You try to fit in, try to explain, but after a while you realize most people don't want to understand. So you walk alone, and in that silence something happens. You either crumble under the weight of loneliness or you learn to find strength in it. The greatest minds, the ones who changed the world, all carried this same burden.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons.
Solitude isn't a curse, it's the space where transformation happens. But this is where many fail. They let the loneliness consume them, turn them bitter, make them doubt themselves. They mistake solitude for emptiness instead of seeing it as the forge where something powerful is being created. The second is carrying the weight of the world's suffering. You don't just notice pain, you absorb it. You can step into a room and feel the energy shift. Someone speaks, and you hear what they're not saying. You carry wounds that aren't even yours. Most people numb themselves to the suffering around them because it's easier. But you don't have that option. You feel everything, and sometimes it's unbearable. But here's the truth, this pain isn't meant to crush you. It's meant to shape you. The greatest healers, leaders, and visionaries are the ones who have felt the deepest pain, not because they were victims of it, but because they learned how to transform it. The suffering you feel isn't yours to keep. It's fuel. It's the fire that will either destroy you or forge you into someone who can bring light into the darkness. But this is where most people collapse under the weight. They drown in the pain instead of learning how to channel it into something greater. They carry it like chains instead of turning it into power. The third is the endless battle between your higher self and your human desires. You feel it pulling at you constantly. One part of you knows you're meant for something bigger, something more meaningful. But the other part just wants comfort, escape, relief from the weight of it all. Some days you're focused, disciplined, unstoppable. Other days you're exhausted, tempted to distract yourself, to numb the intensity of what you feel. And this war inside you never ends. The higher you rise, the stronger the resistance. The more clarity you gain, the more tempting the distractions become. Most people think that at some point this struggle disappears, that once you reach a certain level of wisdom or success, you're free from it. But the truth is, it follows you to the very end. The ones who make it through don't win by eliminating this battle. They win by mastering it. They learn to control the conflict instead of letting the conflict control them. They don't suppress their human side, but they don't let it rule them either. They walk the razor's edge between discipline and chaos, between purpose and temptation, between power and humility. And that's what separates them from everyone else. The ones who fail give in to their lower nature. They let comfort win over purpose. They let fear win over action. They let impulse win over mastery. But the ones who carry this burden and refuse to be controlled by it, they become unstoppable. The fourth burden is carrying the expectations of something greater while being trapped in a world that rewards mediocrity. You feel it every single day, the pressure, the weight of something invisible yet undeniable, the knowledge that you were never meant to live an ordinary life. But the world doesn't make space for people like you. It wants you to shrink, to conform, to play the same game everyone else is playing. It rewards those who follow the rules, who stay in line, who don't question anything. And yet, no matter how much you try to blend in, something inside you refuses to be silenced. It burns, it pushes, it demands that you rise, that you break free, that you fulfill whatever it is that's pulling you forward. But here's the problem: greatness comes with resistance. The moment you start stepping into who you were meant to be, the world pushes back. People will doubt you. Some will undermine you. Some will resent you for making them aware of their own limitations. And the worst part, sometimes the resistance comes from inside you. The fear of failing, the fear of not being enough, the fear that maybe this thing you feel was never real to begin with. That's why most people never make it. They let the weight of expectation crush them instead of fuel them. They either give up or they settle for a life that feels safe but empty. The fifth burden is realizing that you will outgrow people, and there's nothing you can do about it. At first, you try to hold on. You try to bring people with you, try to share what you've learned, try to inspire them to see what you see. But the truth is, not everyone is meant to come with you. And that's one of the hardest things to accept. You will love people who don't grow with you. You will care about people who choose comfort over evolution. And no matter how much you want to pull them forward, you can't. Growth is a choice, and not everyone will make it. You will watch friendships fade, relationships crumble, connections you once thought were unbreakable slowly dissolve. And it will hurt. But the alternative is worse. The alternative is shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. The alternative is holding yourself back so you don't leave anyone behind. And that's not an option. You weren't given this fire just to let it die. You weren't meant to stay the same just because others refuse to change. The ones who are meant to stay in your life will rise with you. The rest, let them go. The sixth burden is knowing that no matter how much work you do, no matter how much wisdom you gain, no matter how much you evolve, you will always carry some level of doubt. It never fully goes away. The more you grow, the more you realize how much you still don't know. The more you push yourself, the more you wonder if you're even going in the right direction. And the hardest part, the world is filled with people who will happily feed that doubt. The ones who never had the courage to chase something bigger will project their fears onto you. They will tell you that you're wasting your time, that you should be more realistic, that you should stop chasing things that don't make sense to them. And there will be moments when their voices get inside your head, when their doubts mix with your own, when you start questioning everything. But here's what separates the ones who make it from the ones who don't. The ones who make it learn to move forward despite the doubt. They learn to take action even when they don't have all the answers. They realize that clarity comes from movement, not from waiting for certainty. They stop looking for guarantees and start trusting themselves. The ones who fail, they wait. They hesitate. They let doubt paralyze them. And in the end, their potential dies with them. The seventh and final burden is understanding that there is no finish line. No moment where you finally arrive, where everything becomes easy, where the struggle disappears. The path never ends. Every level you reach comes with a new challenge, a new sacrifice, a new set of burdens to carry. And that's what makes this life so different from the one most people choose. Most people want comfort. They want security. They want to reach a point where they can stop fighting. But the ones who are truly meant for something greater, the fight never stops. And that's not a curse, it's a gift. Because the struggle is what makes you stronger. The wait is what forces you to grow. The challenges are what shape you into someone who can handle what others can't. But most people don't want that. They want the rewards without the pain. They want wisdom without experience. They want power without the sacrifice. And that's why they stay the same. But you were never meant for that kind of life. Because no matter how heavy this burden gets, no matter how many times you fall, no matter how much doubt creeps in, you will always stand back up. Because that's what it means to be chosen. Most people think they want greatness until they realize what it actually costs. They love the idea of success, of mastery, of becoming someone extraordinary, but they don't want the suffering that comes with it. They don't want the isolation, the sacrifice, the nights filled with doubt, the weight of responsibility. They want the rewards without the struggle, the respect without the discipline, the results without the years of unseen work. That's why most never make it. Because the truth is, this path will break you over and over again. It will strip away every illusion you've ever had about yourself. It will expose your weaknesses, your fears, your deepest insecurities. It will test you in ways you never expected. And just when you think you've made it through, it will hit you even harder. This is where most people quit. They hit their first real obstacle, their first real failure, and they decide it's too much. They tell themselves it wasn't meant to be. They convince themselves they never wanted it that badly in the first place. And just like that, they walk away from everything they could have been. But the ones who make it, they break just like everyone else. But they don't stay broken. They fall, they doubt, they bleed, but they keep moving. They don't wait to feel ready. They don't sit around hoping for the perfect moment. They act, even when they're exhausted, even when they're scared, even when every part of them wants to stop. And that's what separates them from the rest. Not talent, not luck, not some hidden advantage. Just the ability to keep going when most people would rather turn back. Because the reality is, the higher you climb, the harder it gets. Every level demands a new version of you. Every victory comes with a new set of challenges. Every success adds more weight to your shoulders. And if you're not willing to carry that weight, if you're not ready to sacrifice who you are for who you need to become, then you were never meant for this in the first place. The hardest part is accepting that there is no end to this, no final moment where everything becomes easy, where the struggle disappears, where you can finally relax and say you've made it. That moment doesn't exist. Because the second you stop pushing forward, the second you stop challenging yourself, you start to decay. You start to lose the fire that made you different in the first place. That's why so many people who achieve success end up miserable. They thought reaching the top would bring them peace, but the truth is, the hunger is what kept them alive. The struggle is what gave them purpose. The climb is what made them who they are. And when they stop climbing, they lose themselves. This is why the ones who are truly built for this life never stop. They don't chase comfort. They don't look for an easy way out. They embrace the weight, the pain, the never-ending battle, because they know that's the price of greatness. And they are willing to pay it, no matter how heavy it gets. There comes a point when you realize no one is coming to save you. No one is going to understand the weight you carry. No one is going to fight your battles for you. And no one is going to push you forward when everything inside you wants to stop. You are alone in this, and that's not a curse, it's a test. Because the strongest ones, the ones who truly rise above the rest, don't rely on anyone to keep them going. They don't wait for permission, for support, for validation. They move forward even when no one believes in them. They keep fighting even when no one is watching. And that's what makes them different. Most people can only push themselves when they have encouragement, when they have someone cheering them on, when they feel seen and appreciated. But the ones who are built for something greater, they do it in silence. They do it when no one cares. They do it when the world ignores them, doubts them, or even tries to break them. Because they understand something most people never will. Real strength is forged in solitude. At first, the loneliness feels unbearable. You want someone to understand, someone to walk beside you, someone to carry even a fraction of the weight on your shoulders. But the further you go, the more you realize that not everyone is meant to come with you. You will outgrow people. You will lose friendships. You will watch people you once loved stay behind because they are too afraid to evolve. And no matter how much you want to bring them with you, you can't. Growth is a choice, and not everyone will make it. This is where most people break. They can handle the struggle, but they can't handle the isolation. So they stay where it's comfortable, where they're surrounded by people who make them feel safe, even if it means betraying their own potential. But the ones who are truly meant for something more, they learn to walk alone. They learn to carry their own pain, to face their own demons, to build their own path with no guarantee that anyone will ever follow. And in that solitude, they find something unshakable: self-mastery. Because the truth is, if you need people to keep you going, you'll never make it. If you need validation to stay committed, you'll never last. The ones who reach the highest levels, the ones who leave a mark on this world, are the ones who have trained themselves to keep moving forward, whether anyone notices or not. They have built a mindset so unbreakable that no amount of doubt, no amount of failure, no amount of loneliness can stop them. And that's why they succeed where others fail. Not because they had an easier path, not because they had more support, but because they refused to stop even when they had every reason to quit. That is what separates the strongest from the rest. That is why the greatest ones always walk alone. Being different isn't something you choose, it's something you are. From the beginning, you knew you didn't see the world the way others did. You spoke, and people didn't understand. You thought deeply about things that others ignored. You felt emotions more intensely, noticed details that others missed, carried burdens that no one else seemed to feel. And for a long time, you wondered if something was wrong with you, if maybe you were broken. If maybe you should just silence that part of yourself, blend in, make life easier. But no matter how much you tried, you couldn't. Because this isn't something you can turn off. It's the way you were built. And the truth is, the world isn't kind to those who are different. It doesn't reward deep thinkers, relentless dreamers, or those who refuse to accept the limits placed on them. It rewards obedience. It rewards those who stay in line, who do what they're told, who never question anything. And that's why most people settle. Not because they don't have potential, not because they don't feel that spark inside them, but because they're afraid of what it would cost to be different. Because the cost is real. You will be misunderstood. You will be doubted. You will lose people. You will have moments where you question everything, where you wonder if it would have been easier to just be like everyone else. And that's why most people don't make it. They reach that breaking point and they give in. They trade their authenticity for acceptance. They silence themselves so they don't feel alone. They bury their dreams under the weight of other people's expectations. But the ones who refuse to break, the ones who push through the isolation, the doubt, the pain of standing alone, they become something unstoppable. Because once you accept that you were never meant to fit in, once you stop seeking approval from people who will never understand you, once you fully step into who you are without apology, nothing can touch you. You stop being controlled by fear. You stop being held back by the need for validation. You stop playing by rules that were never meant for you in the first place. And that's when everything shifts. The same people who once doubted you will act like they always believed in you. The same world that tried to break you will pretend it supported you all along. But by then, it won't matter. Because you won't need their approval. You won't care about proving anything to anyone. You will have built something bigger than them, something that could only exist because you refuse to be like the rest. And that is the real price of being different. It will cost you everything. But in the end, you will realize it was the only path worth taking. Most people are trapped, and the worst part is they don't even realize it. They wake up, follow a routine they didn't choose, chase goals they don't actually care about, and live inside a system designed to keep them distracted and obedient. They tell themselves they're free, that they're making their own decisions, that they're in control of their lives. But deep down, something feels off. There's this quiet voice, this unshakable feeling that something isn't right, that they were meant for more. But instead of listening to it, they drown it out. They numb themselves with entertainment, with mindless scrolling, with anything that keeps them from facing the truth. Because the truth is terrifying. The truth means admitting that they've wasted years chasing things that don't matter. It means realizing that the life they've built is nothing more than a cage. And the moment they acknowledge that, they have two choices: tear everything down and start over, or pretend they never heard it. And most people, they choose to pretend. Because breaking free isn't just about seeing the truth, it's about acting on it. And acting on it means uncertainty. It means risk. It means walking away from everything familiar, everything safe, everything that made life comfortable. It means standing alone, being misunderstood, being criticized, being told you're making a mistake. It means failing, struggling, rebuilding from nothing. And that's why most people stay exactly where they are. Not because they don't want more, not because they don't feel that fire inside them, but because they are afraid of what it would take to follow it. They would rather live in a predictable cage than step into an unknown world where nothing is guaranteed. They tell themselves stories to justify it. They say they're being realistic. They say now isn't the right time. They say they have responsibilities, obligations, things they can't just walk away from. But in the end, it all comes down to fear. The ones who break free aren't the ones who have an easier path. They aren't the ones who have more talent, more resources, more opportunities. They are simply the ones who decide that the fear of staying trapped is worse than the fear of the unknown. They are the ones who are willing to lose everything to gain themselves. And that's the real cost of freedom. It will demand more from you than you ever thought possible. It will strip away everything false, everything weak, everything that isn't truly yours. But if you can endure that, if you can push through the fear, the doubt, the loneliness, you will come out the other side as something unshakable. And while the rest of the world stays asleep, trapped in a life they never truly chose, you will be the one who finally woke up.